Hi everyone. Today we're going to edit this picture of a daisy that I took in my local woods. So first up, we're going to tweak the crop slightly. Now as you can see, the image is actually already square, but this is because in Olympus cameras, which is what I use, when you set the image area, it's actually setting a crop. And Lightroom is very kindly still utilizing it. So if I hit the R key and I go into the crop tool, you can see on the right here in the toolbar, under aspect, it says as shot. So that's super handy for me not to need to crop it square afterwards, and I can still get it composed really well in camera when I'm taking the picture. So I like to go into blackout mode, which is hitting the L key twice. This makes everything else black, so now I can see very clearly what my image is going to look like when it's cropped. In this case, I'm just going to center the daisy ever so slightly more. I never crop my images in any further than they already are, because I like to print quite large in my final images when I do print, so I want as many megapixels as I can possibly get. So I try and get it right in camera as much as I possibly can. So once you've got your crop set, I'll hit the enter key to exit out the crop tool. Now I'm going to start editing the overall picture. So first of all, I want a bit more detail into the petals of the daisy. So I'm going to use the highlights slider to bring some more life into the highlights. Now I really don't care if I don't have blacks and whites in these pictures. As long as there's a good tonal range, nobody's ever going to notice. And because I do so much color grading, having darker whites and lighter blacks actually helps there anyway, as you'll see later. So I'm going to tweak the shadows slightly because I want to increase the contrast, and that's always going to reduce the or increase the darks anyway. So I just want to bring up the shadows a little bit, balance them a bit more. I'm going to go to the contrast slider and bring that up. Not too much, but I want that daisy to jump out a little bit more in the foreground there. I'm going to go back to the shadow slider and tweak that a little bit further. So that's it for general tweaks of the image. Now I'm going to go and target all of these light areas, because I want the lightest part of my picture to be my subject, so I need to tweak all of these areas a little bit and make them a little bit darker than my subject. So to do that, I'm going to use the masking tool. So I'm going to click this button. So the tools I normally use is the radial gradient tool and the linear gradient tool. Generally I just use the radial. So I'm going to click the radial tool. I'm going to find one of these places I want to edit. I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to tweak the highlights further and a little bit of the exposure. I have to be very careful that I don't make it look unnatural and that I don't end up getting halos. You can also bring the whites down to make it less prominent as well. So I've done that one. So now I'm going to use some shortcuts to make this a bit quicker. So Shift M will give me another gradient tool. So I'm going to tackle this one up in the corner. Same thing again. I'm just looking to make it a bit darker, so as to make sure the viewer's eye is always going to my subject area. Reduce the whites a little bit as well. And again, I'm going to choose another one. This time it's going to be just behind this the subject itself. So the nice thing with the radial gradient tool, obviously it falls off quite a bit towards the edges, which means it doesn't matter if it goes a little bit over your subject. And again, just a little bit of tweaking. I'm going to leave the exposure alone this time because I think it will make it a bit too obvious that it's been tweaked. But the white can definitely go down a little bit. I'm going to add another one, this time over here. Same again. Let's nudge down the highlights a little bit. Take down the exposure. Go into the whites, take those down a little bit as well. And I'm going to add another one down here on this one in the corner, as that one is quite distracting. So I'm going to go highlights and whites on this one. I'm going to go quite hard because I really want to make sure that it's quite a bit darker, but still natural. Right, that's good. Now these petals down the bottom right are still very, very bright, so I'm going to want to reduce the brightness on those and try and bring out some more details as well. So same again, I'm going to bring the highlights down on those. I just want to make sure that I'm not doing it too much because the other petals are still quite bright. I just want to balance that a little bit. So once all that's done, let's hit the close button at the bottom of the window here, and that's going to close that tool and go back to filters. I'm just going to check a little bit of before and after. So that's before, that's after. Definitely jumping out a bit better my subject there. So now I've just noticed that there's this really annoying spot on this daisy. I don't like it, I'm finding it distracting. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go select the remove tool. I'm going to go to remove, I'm going to choose the healing brush. I'm going to make sure my brush is covering the whole thing. I do that using the bracket keys. I'm going to click. Lightroom is going to choose an area. In this case, it hasn't done a great job, so I'm just going to move the circle. I'm going to pay lots of attention to the textures. Make sure they line up nicely. Like that, let go. If I move my mouse away from my picture, the circles will go away and I can get a good look. I like it, so I can just click close. So while I'm doing this removal of distractions, I can have a quick look around the whole image just to see if there's anything else I want to get rid of. I don't think so, that all looks good, so I'm going to go back to the filters. Now I want to adjust midtones a little bit, probably brighten them up, which will soften some shadows on the daisy. To do this, I'm actually going to use the color grading tool. If you don't adjust any colors, then it's just adjusting your values. So in the midtones section at the top here, I can grab the slider and I can, you can see, make it darker, or I can make it lighter. In this case, I want to make it brighter overall, like so. You can use this little eye thing up in the top left here to see before and after. As you can see, it's greatly reduced those shadows across the image, which I really like. Right, so now all the basics have been done, I'm going to jump into Luminar Neo to do finishing touches. So to do that, I'm going to right click, go to Edit In. I'm going to go to Luminar Neo, and this will pop up the Edit In dialog box. You want to make sure Edit a Copy with Lightroom Adjustments is selected. The format should be TIFF. Because I print, I want the color space to be Adobe RGB and the resolution to be 300, as I find these to be the best settings for print. 16-bit I want selected because that gives us as much data as we can get, and more data is always better. And I use zip compression because it reduces the file size, and all my tools I use are compatible with compressed TIFFs. So now I'm going to just hit edit and wait a minute or two for Luminar Neo to start up. It shouldn't take long. I do all of my final edits in Luminar. I find it a really quick way to get to my final look that I like. So now we're in Luminar. I'm going to go click up here at the top in the middle on the Edit tab. Now the first thing that I always do is I go to Enhance. If people don't know Luminar Neo, it's a great tool. You can do all your raw editing in here, but I like to use it for effects. It is quite different from Lightroom. It stacks all its filters one on top of the other, which means that the order you use them in is quite important. So first off, I'm going to use Enhance. The Enhance tool is great for balancing lights and darks across your picture. So it will always try and brighten those dark areas without touching any of the light ones. So I'm just going to bring it up and see how it does. As you can see, the greens in the background are starting to brighten up, which I like. So I'm just going to find a level that I like. We can always come back and tweak these later on in the tool. Okay, I quite like it right there. So I'm going to close it down. I'm going to go down to Structure AI. So Structure is a great tool for bringing details out in shadows and darker areas, or generally giving you more contrast between lights and darks. So I'm going to increase it slightly. I really only want this effect though on the daisy, the head of the daisy. So I'm going to jump into masking, I'm going to hit the brush tool. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger using the bracket keys, and I'm just going to paint in where I want this effect to be, which is about there. I'm going to go back into adjustment, and then when I tweak it, as you can see, it's now just affecting the daisy. Again, similar to Lightroom, you can look at this little eye thing and you can click on it and turn the effect on and off, so you can see a bit better what that one adjustment has done. I like that, so I'm going to click to close it. I'm going to go down to Super Contrast next. This is a contrast tool for highlights, midtones and shadows. What's nice about this tool is not only will it give you a bit more detail in these areas, but it can also increase the saturation, which in a lot of cases is quite handy, but just something you have to keep an eye on because it can get a bit too much. But I want a little bit more detail, contrast in the petals, in the white areas, so I'm going to increase those. And I like it about there. And I want to rebalance the shadows a little bit more as well, make them a bit brighter. So I'll just nudge up the shadows a bit more. I'm going to leave the midtones alone because I don't want any more saturation really in this image right now. It's already full of colors. So next up, I am going to add a bit of a golden glow to the image. Now to do this, I'm going to use the landscape tool section and go to landscape, and then I'm going to use golden hour. I'm just going to increase golden hour slightly, which just puts this golden glow on all the bright areas of the picture, just to really make these golden areas even more gold, like that. So next I'm going to apply a glow. It's going to be a Autumn Effect Soft, which is a bright glow. And I'm going to drag the amount. You can see it's brightening the whole image, giving it this lovely soft glow across the whole thing. I don't really want it to get too bright, so I'm going to use the brightness slider and reduce it a little bit. And I'm just going to look at the contrast to see if that does anything for me. Just increase it a little bit. I'm going to go back to the amount and adjust it to my taste, which is about there. Now these glows are applying a blur across the image, and I want to make sure I still have lots of details, so I'm going to add some details back using the details filter. And I'm just going to use the large details to bring back the sharpness in the areas that are slightly larger than the others, not too small. Somewhere around 30, 22 maybe. Let's have a look. It's very easy to overdo this tool, so you have to be a little bit careful with it. I like that. So next up, I'm going to start doing the color grading, which is some of my favorite parts of the edit. First of all, I'm going to use the matte tool. This is absolutely my favorite tool in Luminar Neo. What it does is it sort of gives you a bit of a vintage type look, but the thing I really like about it is it will lighten your dark areas and it will crush your highlights a little bit. So this really allows you to then push colors into those dark areas and light areas with tools like the toning tool, which you'll see in a bit. But you can also color tone with the matte filter as well, which you'll see in a second. So I'm just going to find an initial spot that I like, where everything sort of looks the way I want it. I want the dark fade to happen a bit quicker, so I'm going to increase the fade slider. And the rest of it looks quite good. Let me just see the contrast. I will increase the contrast just a little bit more. I'm going to reduce vividness slightly as the contrast has made it a bit saturated. Now down in color toning, because the subject is yellow and there's loads of green in the image, I want to add a complementary color to that, which is around the purple to red area. So when you add any color adjustment to the matte tool, it will do it in the faded areas. And the way I like to do it, I'll increase range to 100%, and then I will find the color that I like using the hue slider. In this case, I'm looking for a reddy purple color. I want to increase the saturation a bit here. That's looking quite nice. So now I'm just going to adjust the range slider to get the amount of purple in those faded areas that I want. I'm going to just look before and after. I like that quite a bit. That's looking good. So what I've noticed though is that the darks have now become a bit too bright. So I'm just going to go into the develop tool. I'm going to open up black and whites, and I'm just going to lower the blacks just a little bit more. Check before and after, just to make those areas a bit darker again and add a bit more contrast. So now I'm going to do some more color toning using the toning tool. I like to tone the shadow and highlight separately, so I'm just going to use this tool twice. So first of all, we're going to stick with the shadows, and in the shadows I want to add a bit more red. So I always raise the saturation to 100%, and then I'm going to just find the color. I'm going to go for something on this end, like there. And then in the balance one, because this is the shadows, I'm actually going to go towards the highlight end, and this will reduce where it shows up in the shadows. So somewhere around there. And then I go back to saturation, and I'm going to tweak this just to bring those reds into those very dark areas about there. Have a look at it before and after. So I'm going to click toning again. I'm going to click it again to open it back up. This time I'm going to work on highlights. So again, saturation all the way. This time I want a bluey, tealy color to go in the highlights. I think that's going to look really good when I find the right one. Something about there. Balance I'm going to take down to the shadows because I want it to only affect the maximum highlights, which is in that region, and then I'm going to go bring down the saturation and find where I like to have this, which is about there. So that's the color toning done. Now I was having a look to see whether I want to adjust any contrast anymore, but I think I am good with that. I'm going to use this little eye tool at the bottom just to see where we started and where we are right now. Looking really good. So to finish this off, I'm going to add a vignette. So I open all these tools up because I generally tweak a lot of these areas. So I'm going to move the side to the left, which will make the edges darker. I want a lot more feather in there. I want a tighter vignette. And in this case, the subject's a tiny bit off center. So I'm actually going to use the choose subject, and I'm going to put it in the middle of this part. And then that will move the center of the vignette right over there. I want even more drop off. Let's have a look. That's looking a bit too much. Let's see. That's looking a lot better, still a bit too much. That is looking good. So that's my edit complete. Because I really like the way this, all these colors and everything look, I'm actually going to save this as a preset. So you can click these three buttons at the bottom here, and then a menu will pop up and you can click Save as Preset. You might not have seen it because I think it came off the bottom of my screen. But you give your preset some sort of name that you like. I'm going to call this Warm, Cool Daisy. Hit enter. So next time I can potentially use this preset if I like it. And that's all done now, so I'm just going to hit apply, and this is going to take me back into Lightroom Classic. So I'll just take a minute to render the picture, and then this will add it to my picture as a stack. And there we have it. That is a full start to finish edit. Let's have a look at them side by side. Left is my final edit. On the right is the original before the look. I think it's looking really good. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you want me to go into anything in depth, please leave a comment. I'll create another video on it. If you found this valuable, please hit the subscribe and the like button, and I'll see you again in another video.